Hello, it's Simon Zutshi here, and in this property education video, I'm going to share with you how I was able to quit my career at age 30 and how you can do the same. But also I'm going to talk about what will you do when you no longer have to work, and actually how retirement may not suit you. It certainly didn't suit me. I started investing in 1995 and I bought a house just to live in. I'd started work at Cadbury's and I rented out 2 of the rooms to my friends who were still studying at Birmingham University, and I pretty much lived for free. Now, I had followed a very traditional route. I had gone obviously to school. I'd been told that you should try and get a good education, go to university if you can, and try and get a good job. And I really wanted to get a great job in a good company because that's what I had been told you had to do. Both my sisters were working for blue chip companies, and you know, you're very much shaped by your environment. The people around you will affect your thinking and your beliefs. And I believed that really the best thing to do if you want to be wealthy is to get a good job in a great company so you can work your way up the corporate ladder. Maybe you are like me and that's what you thought you should do. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. Some of the wealthiest people in the world work for corporate organizations. However, when I got into that job and I got my dream job at Cadbury, I liked the company, I liked the people, I liked the product. The one thing I found was I just didn't have as much freedom as I wanted. I love to travel, I like to take holidays, and getting 4 or 5 weeks holiday a year just was not enough for me. So although I loved what I was doing, when I started to get rental income coming in from my properties, I thought maybe there was an alternative to the idea of working for your entire life. So I had this first property in 1995, I was living for free, and I was saving lots of my salary, and I had a part-time business running student nightclub events in Birmingham. And it was a fantastic business at that time. It was a cash business, money building up in my business bank account, and I decided to buy a second property. Now, none of my family had ever really invested in property apart from their own homes. They certainly hadn't taught me about investing, but I'd learned from my very first landlord. When I was a student at Birmingham University, I rented a house, and my landlord had about 100 houses in the local area. He lived in a huge house in Edgbaston in Birmingham, and I thought one day when I'm rich, I'd like to buy lots of property. And I think a lot of people have that belief. They think they have to be rich, they have to be wealthy to be able to invest in property. And I was able to buy my second property because I had this money saved up in my bank account. Now, it was only later on in my property investing journey that I learned that you don't actually need to have a lot of money to invest in property. And I'll talk about that later in this video. But certainly in the early days, I was very much investing in a traditional way. I was saving a deposit and buying a property. So I was slowly building my property portfolio. But each property I acquired and added into my portfolio, I was getting a little bit closer to that point where I no longer had to work. And it was actually in the year 2000 when I looked at my property portfolio and I hadn't replaced my income, but I realized that what was coming in from my properties very much passively was enough to cover my living expenses. So I made that decision at the end of the year 2000. In 2001, I would leave my corporate job at Cadbury's. All my friends and family thought I was absolutely crazy. But I thought I'd love to have more time to myself, and I can spend more time on my property investing. I spend more time on my student nightclub business. And it took me a couple of more years, but by the time I got to 2003, I'd completely replaced my income. So it took me 8 years doing it on my own. And the good news is for you that you don't have to take 8 years to replace your income. I mean, I think that was pretty good, really, given that I had no guidance. I was kind of just doing it as I went along. But actually, if you have a plan and you commit to follow that plan, you can replace your income much quicker. A good friend of mine, Gregg, who also worked at Cadbury's, he joined the year before me in 1994. He stayed there 20 years, worked his way to the top of the corporate ladder, and it was only when Cadbury's was taken over by another company that he decided to take redundancy and leave Cadbury's. Because actually, for him to go further up the corporate ladder, he would have to relocate to Switzerland, and he didn't want to do that. He was fixed in Birmingham, had roots here with young kids and elderly parents. He wanted to stay here. So he took redundancy, and he came and looked me up, and he realized that I'd left Cadbury's thanks to my property. He realized I was now teaching other people to do what I had done, but much quicker. And he came and did my 3-day mastermind accelerator with his wife, Jane. He loved it. He then did my year-long program. And what took me 8 years to do, to replace my salary, took Gregg just 8 months. because he had a plan. Now, he was doing it full time and he had some redundancy money and he had some equity from his own home, and that's how most people get started in property. But he had a plan and he followed it. And by the way, Gregg's leaving salary was probably about 3 times more than my leaving salary, because I'd only been there 5.5 years and Gregg had been there 20 years, become a top senior manager. And yet he was able to replace that very high salary in just 8 months because he used high cash flow strategies such as HMOs, houses of multiple occupation. Apart from my very first property that I bought in 95 and turned into a student HMO in 98, most of my first few houses were single let properties because that's all I knew. And I didn't have the specialist knowledge to understand that actually you don't need to have 30, 50 properties to replace your income. All you need is maybe a handful of properties that are generating high cash flow for the average person to replace their income. For example, if you had a property making £1,000 profit, which is what you should be able to do from an HMO or service accommodation unit, and you might well buy that property, you might well be doing a rent-to-rent strategy or a purchase lease option where you don't actually own it, but you get the cash flow. But £1,000 profit per month after all expenses from each property means the average person might only need 3 to 5 properties to completely replace their income. And if you know what you're doing, you can absolutely acquire those 3 to 5 properties in a year or less. So what would it be if you were able to replace your income in the next 12 months? It would probably be a game changer. And my question to you is, what would you do? I'd love you to type in the comments below. What would you do if you didn't have to work? Now, some of the people I work with, they love what they do. They're just trying to put a safety net in place in case they could no longer work. Some people like the idea of just stopping completely, putting their feet up, traveling around the world and doing nothing. Well, if you're like me, that sounds quite attractive, but actually that would drive me crazy. My wife would go crazy if I was just around all the time. And actually, once you get to the point of financial freedom, when you no longer have to work, when you don't have to trade your time for money, it's a very interesting position because you can decide how you spend your time. And in 2003, when I started the Property Investor Network, because for the first 8 years, I'd been really lonely on my property journey because all my friends were working, my family not really invested. They didn't really understand what I was trying to achieve. And I wanted to get like-minded people around me to help support me and who understand what I'm trying to achieve. So I started PIN back in 2003, and I started to teach other people what I had done. And that's when I realized that's my passion. Sometimes people say to me, Simon, why do you teach other people? You're so wealthy. Why do you spend your time teaching other people? Well, first of all, I'm doing what I love to do. And for me, that's the real benefit of investing in property. When you replace your income, you have the choice and freedom about how you spend your time. So you might want to retire and do nothing. But for me, retirement is about having the choice of what you do. And for me, I love what I do. I don't have to do this anymore. I get paid very, very well for what I do because we help people achieve life-changing results in a very short amount of time. The reason people come on paid training is they want to get the results quickly. They want to speed up the results because really investing in themselves is a way of getting the results much quicker than if they're trying to learn for free. And in fact, I put so much free information out on this YouTube channel and my Property Magic podcast. I highly recommend you to subscribe to that and subscribe to this channel. If you like this video, click the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so you get notified anytime these videos come out. But I put so much information out for free. If you take action and apply this, you will become very, very wealthy. The problem with free information is because people haven't paid for it, sometimes they don't pay attention. And when people invest in themselves and they make an investment of cash, they want to make sure they get a return on that investment. So guess what? The more they invest, the more attention they pay, the more likely they are to implement what they learn. And if they implement and keep going, they're going to get results. So by all means, do enjoy the free training on this video. But if you really want to get success and you want to speed up that process and save yourself years of learning, of trial and terror, making expensive mistakes, maybe you should invest in yourself. And actually, if you want to do that, there's going to be a link below here where you can book a call with one of my team who'll help you go through a strategy session to work out really what should you be doing based on what you want to achieve? What's the best strategy for you and how can you actually implement that? And if you want to get that complimentary session with one of my team to guide you, and also they'll let you know how we can maybe help you based on what you do, what training you might need. We have lots of different types of training for different people at different levels. Why not come and book that call and we can help you work out how you can move forward and how you can replace your income as quickly as you want. So I do hope you've enjoyed this video. Maybe click on the link below, book that call with one of my team. And as ever, I encourage you to invest with knowledge, invest with skill.